terms of the water department, when I was at the 100 East today, they mentioned that it could be a few months before, the work is, completed. And I just wanted to know, in terms of like the budgets, the water, budget, when we have major leaks like this, is that something that we're factored in when we do the capital budgets?
So this is a sewer line, which is a little bit different, but this past week, we did work with Kimberly and our consultant on their budget, and I think we're in a pretty good place.
Yes.
So these things are considered. That's why you keep that buffer in there, so.
East Hartsdale is a major undertaking. It's going to be considerably expensive. The amount of work that's going out there is, first of all, very high quality to do something so quickly and so effectively. But there's going to be considerable inconvenience, to my understanding. Some trees have to come down. There has to be a draining of pipe that doesn't seem to be drainable at this point, no matter how much they try and pump it out. And so
The repair to the.
well, we first have to figure out what's wrong, right?
And
so
they're
we haven't
making
been able to do
progress.
that. Right.
But like Francis said, I would avoid East Hartsdale Avenue if you don't need to be there.
Except if you live there. You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. But it was a full court press. The fire department was out there. The police department was out there on Friday. The engineering department, the building department, DPW, town attorney's office, representative from the town board, and there's a tremendous effort going into trying to solve this problem. It's probably the biggest problem in trying to resolve an issue, because you have, tall buildings still in operation dealing with raw sewage, as raw as you can get. I didn't smell any gas while I was there for the entire day, but that doesn't mean that those are smelling gas. It may be sewer gases, which are deadly.
I spoke to the county health department today, and they checked it out and said everything's fine. I spoke to the deputy commissioner of health,
Chris
and he
Erickson.
also reached out to DEP as well. So that was done today.
Good, great.
Right. Once they can get the pipe in front of 100 without water, they'll be able to put a camera down. But right now, if they put a camera down, the camera's underwater. It's not going to see very far. And that's a major undertaking. Massive operation, trying to bypass an entire building with enormous pipes, temporary pipes above ground, going up probably 30 feet high, up an incline to get it to East Hartsdale Avenue, to get it into one of the manholes. I'm sure there's a better word than that, but that's in the sidewalk.
And a reason why they.
Right, exactly. And it's also very dangerous work, because we know from experience that you go down a manhole and you don't check the gases, that could be a fatality. So,
Is there any other, so thank you for that, but is there any other cautionary precautions that we want to give to anyone in that area, anyone trying to come past that area, just?
well, the fire department was great. Because they came out pretty much en masse. They have the plans of the floors. We're trying to find the plans for the actual building. Why they would build a building on top of the sewer is beyond me, but they did. And once they can get that pipe, I think we'll
That
have.
building's
So
probably like 70 years old.
some
right?
people, yeah, it was probably in the 60s, right? But the manholes are made out of brick,
Terracotta.
right? And as you go down, one of them is like a snake because of the shifting of the earth.
Yeah, took some
So-
photos.
so-
People wanna look.
I know you were trying to, let's have a meeting with the neighbors, but frankly, this is what we know so far. And once the camera can go down, then things will start to, basically get a
The only
life.
reason, first of all, I want to thank Frank Morabito, because right after this, occurred, before anybody knew the extent of the problem, you took time out of your schedule on a weekend, and you were there most of the weekends, addressing it. And although, I've gotten complaints from people about the odors, and now the county says that it's not something that people should worry about, because there's a lot of hypochondriacs in East Hartsdale Avenue and Greenberg. But the thing is,
I won't go by the contracts, I think.
Said that is Paul Feiner. That statement was made by Paul Feiner.
We send this,
Do not necessarily represent the views of the rest of us around.
right?
There's a lot
I was
of-
going to
there's a lot of
suggest that
people-
Paul take this
There's a
video
lot
and
of,
send it to
there's a
them,
lot of
but now
people
maybe
who,
not.
if you smell odors, you worry and you worried about all the risks. All I want to say is that everybody that I've spoken to, nobody's complained about the town. Everybody feels the town's been responsive. They followed up immediately. Today, when I was speaking to the police there, everybody is really pleased. I think what people would like to know is, how long is this going to take? What are some of the steps that are going to happen? If we say, listen, we checked with the county health department, don't worry, the odors or something, it's not something that you have to worry about. I think that the more information we provide, the better it is, because then it's transparency, and then people will have more confidence. The sidewalk isn't great, isn't there now. The building right now, you have two entrances on 100 East Hartsdale Avenue. So if somebody, God forbid, has a heart attack, the first responders have to go from one side of the building all the way to the other, which could be, takes time to get from one end to the other, because the entrance on one side is blocked. So, there's little things that we could basically explain to people, and it doesn't mean that, we're doing anything wrong. It's just that, I just believe the more transparent we are and open we are and more information, I think people appreciate it. Just like,
But
And I
may
think
I
that's
say
great.
something, Paul?
Yeah.
Because, and I agree that it's a good idea, but to make projections when we haven't identified the problem yet, we
We have no
can't
clue.
give a date as to when things will be done, or even an estimate, until we have more information. So, but what we can promise is that as soon as we do have information, we will make sure to let the residents know
And just to
what the
remind-
timeline
and
is.
just to remind residents, just as Councilman Sheehan mentioned, that we had emergency responders out on the site. So we know exactly what the patterns are. We know exactly what's out on site. So I don't want to put people in a panic. God forbid there's a medical emergency, that we will not be able to assist them. This is why they were out on site. So we just want to make, I hope you heard me because my microphone was off. So I'll just repeat myself really quickly. The reason why first responders were out on site to meet with everyone, so they understand in case an emergency does happen, everyone, there's a plan in place.
There's a pre-plan.
And there's a pre-plan, thank you, sir. There's a pre-plan in place. So I don't want to put fear in anyone that we will not be able to get to you. So I just need to make sure that we're clear on that God forbid something was to happen, an emergency, that the fire department and the police department and any town staff knows the routes to get to assist you.
what do they do? But again, I think it's always good to let
Right,
people know as much.
but you don't want to spread misinformation. When we were out there, Hartsdale Fire Department, and they were out in mass, they were out checking to make sure that they had the keys to the lockbox, and how to get in. They can get in right where the break is. That's not a problem. The public can't go in and out that way because it's too dangerous. But they were making sure that if they needed to get in that side of the building, they're going to get in that side of the building. So I don't want people to think if something happens to me, fire department has to go all the way around to get me. They have ways of getting in. It's just the public can't do that because it's just too hazardous in that particular site.
Did you want to
And
move
during
it?
construction, the paths of egress will be maintained. So it's not going to be like you're trapped in your building once the construction starts.
But you see, that's when providing information, if you said something like that, you don't have access because it's unsafe, but the first responders do have access, that's something that's reassuring to the community. So it's not, so I'm saying whatever information we could do to calm people down and let people know that we have a
Absolutely.
plan.
That's why we're having
Well,
this
that's why we're
discussion.
having this discussion.
Yes.
And absolutely, we totally agree
why
that
we're
we
having
make
this
sure that any updates and stuff that we have, we make sure that we update residents.
But the best people to give that are the people from the different departments. This is basically a summary of what was happening on Friday, where there was considerable amount of work going on. And there was a lot of work done before Friday, once the break was found, to put up that temporary but very sturdy, secure, what would you say they're?
Shoring?
1 foot pipes or
Yeah, they're 6-foot pipes.
diameter?
Oh, in diameter, we talking about for the vacuum truck?
Right,
That they're 1-foot diameter
right,
pipes
right.
for vacuum.
So, and they have a backup, and now I saw some emails of people complaining, well, the backup hose is taking away some space where people could be walking. But you need a backup, because it's not going to take much for the sewage. Remember, these buildings are still in functioning. People are still using the sinks, they're still flushing the toilets. It's all going down into these pipes that they're trying to keep clean, and bypassed 100. And so far, even though 100 is bypassed, the pipe keeps getting filled. And it's not necessarily coming from the building. It may be coming from an adjacent building. All of this has to get worked out. But before we start talking about it's going to take 2 months, I don't know who said it's going to take
Well, I
2
spoke to the
months.
foreman today, he said 3 months.
Right, okay,
Well,
so
again-
let him give you a guarantee and he'll pay for everything if it's not, right? He's not going to do that. He's not going to do
So we can just continue to update and make
The
sure
only,
everyone is
the
fully-
last thing.
We just don't know. We just don't know. It could be that it's something very simple, right?
Just
Or
to
not.
keep this in mind, you're dealing with what appears to be close, or if not, a 100-year-old pipe. It's very deep in the middle of a very, very busy road with very large buildings surrounding you. And as Francis said, you've had your fire department, your police department. Frank has been living out there. Your water and sewer department has been out there. Everybody is aware of what's going on. However, we don't know what's really the true cause, so it's going to take some time. Everybody's got to be patient. The right people have been out there. They know exactly what they got to do.
But the only thing
And
that
it is a priority.
I think the only thing that I was going to say, this is the last thing I'd say, is what I would have recommended is if the department heads who are working on this would be able to craft like a memo that we could tape on the window at the entrance of the lobby. And basically we provide, it could be every week or every 2 weeks, little updates. While we know, we could say, this is what we know right now. We can't give you a guaranteed time, but this, it's not going to happen. We're not going to solve this problem in a week. It's going to be, a number of times. If we say, good news, the county health department's been out there. Even if you smelled odors, there's no health risk. Then you could say, whatever, we could say, by the way, great news, if you're worried about access in case of an emergency, our first responders will be able to get to you quickly. If we just had something and we put it at the lobby, then and then we keep updating people, then people will be pleased, because people call me and they still don't know what's going on.
Can I make a suggestion? We're having a very comprehensive
Right.
conversation about this now. We can commit to updating every couple of weeks, and what you can post is for people to tune in and watch the video, and then they will hear this entire discussion, and then it's encapsulated rather than putting it in 2 lines on a piece of paper that people might not look at.
And again, what's important to remember with this, especially with our aging infrastructure, and I'm going to keep saying that because when we talk about capital, it's very important to realize that we have an aging infrastructure. And I know this board has seen it a lot over the last few years. We have a lot of things that's starting to have problems. We've had, it was Ardsley Road last year. We've had things just all over the place starting to give us troubles. We want to make sure we do it right, right?
Correct.
So if we examine the pipe at some point and we just decide it needs to be lined or slip, we got to figure out how to do it right so we don't have to go back there and do this again. Even this past weekend, Frank we got called, Frank went out, someone moved some of the barriers and decided they were gonna park, and they hit the temporary pipe.
Shift
Loosened it up a little bit, and sewage was leaking. Morano's the contractor, they were called, they corrected the situation. So everybody's on top of this. It's being checked constantly. We're very sensitive to the residents out there. We want to make sure everybody's cared for, but we also want to make sure this is done right, so we don't have to do it.
And also,
And
the
if I may, just so that you know, it's not
It'll be the last.
only Greenberg. It's throughout the
Everywhere.
county, throughout the state probably. Our infrastructure in this county, for the most part, those pipes are made out of terracotta. They're over 100 years old. They degrade. And with climate as it's been, with development, number one, which puts more stress on that infrastructure, and with the aggravated climate storms, which put even more pressure on, we are all suffering from these kinds of problems. And it's massive. So it's not just Greenberg.
It's everywhere. And a little bit of good news.
We have, right.
We got a lot to do.
So I think, I think this is really great, and I know this is exactly what the community wants to hear, and make sure that we give continuous updates. So next work session, if you, either two of you can come, give us five-minute update on what's going on Hartsdale Avenue.
Yeah.
But I just want to say thank you so much for coming. We're just going to probably continue with the
Okay.
budget, because I
but
believe-
just the last thing is, no, I'm
This
just
is the
saying.
fourth last
I
thing.
tried,
Mark.
I tried.
Right. Well, I'm saying is I got a bunch of emails today from people who missed the train. Because they were going on East Hartsdale Avenue and they were upset. So I would like to suggest that we put a digital board somewhere.
Absolutely.
No, I'm saying, just saying,
there.
avoid, there's going to be traffic and, no,
there.
but it doesn't say traffic. It basically, the digital board is saying, be careful about the sidewalk, crossing.
We just changed the message.
Yeah,
Just change
could
the
we
message,
change-
that's
yeah,
all.
could we
So
change it?
If you could
Okay.
work, if
Yeah,
you could
just-
work with whoever changes the message.
Who changes
Please
the
do
Yeah.
message?
it,
I
yes.
think Ben Fountain Sergeant.
Yeah.
So we,
Okay,
so we
great.
can have, we can have a
Department's been great.
conversation with the chief and the sergeant,
Yep.
and then,
But it probably should alternate, because if you've been saying be careful of the sidewalk, you take that down and somebody gets hurt on the sidewalk,
Well, it could scroll to
we're
something
going,
else.
yeah, that's it, yeah. that's
Or
what
we
I
could
mean.
basically
Both
put another
messages.
one on Central Avenue or West Hartsdale.
We can
Avenue.
work out those logistics. I don't think we need to,
Absolutely.
we don't
can
need
work
to
with
have
the
that
chief. You
sort
guys
of.
work with the chief, well, chief and his staff.
Once we get the pipe empty, a lot will happen, so.
It'll move.
All right.
Thank you
Appreciate
very much.
Thank you so
I
much.
really appreciate
All right.
all the
Have a great
hard
evening.
work you're doing on this.